Hello, and welcome back to Financial Freedom for the Average Person. Today, I'm going to start talking about expenses. Again, this is our chapter three, and it's wealth and expenses. And I will say this chapter is kind of like a shotgun approach. I'm going to hit a lot of different topics. We'll come back and visit several other areas later in the course as well. But the first thing we're going to start with is just how the approach will work, and then we'll get into talking about buying a home. All right. So, your income is pretty well set. There's lots of things you can do to improve your income. There's other things you can do to add additional income, but it's pretty well set. When you get into expenses, though, there are lots of ways to get what you want, and lots of different approaches, and you can save a lot. And it can go a long way to freeing up that money that you need to build your retirement and build for other things you want in your life. So what I'm going to do is give you lots of ideas and approaches and some my experience. And I'm going to tell you things I did wrong, and there's been lots of those. But I'll share with you some things that certainly advice that basically I would give my kids. So starting off with a big one, home purchasing. Possibly the biggest expense you're going to take on. Certainly, starting out. And boy, has this gotten complicated here lately. Um, right now, I just heard yesterday on the news the average first home buyer right now in 2026 is 40 years old. Terrible, terrible. It used to be, that you'd want to be getting into your house, late 20s, early 30s, but the cost has just gotten so outrageous, especially after COVID. But at the same time, the rents have went up too. And renting is, you look at it as kind of a losing situation because you're giving that money up, you're not getting any equity build up through that. Now there are times when it's appropriate to rent, um, and example, I'm actually renting an apartment right now in Las Vegas, just because I want a place to visit, or we want a place to be while we're visiting our daughter, and I don't know that she's staying, and the housing prices are just kind of ridiculous. So I couldn't justify buying a $400,000 or $500,000 townhome, and then try to sell it in 2 years. My assumption is I would probably lose more money doing that than I would renting an apartment for those 2 years. So anyway, there's going to be time. Now, when you're looking at your house payment, it's important that you don't become house poor. And I see so many people that do that. Mortgage companies will allow you to take big mortgages out, right up to the limit that it's just like everything you're doing is going into the house. And for some people, it paid off. Californians, they bought houses and struggled with the prices, but the prices have continued to go up. So, they're looking at the opportunity to downsize and go someplace like Florida, which is much more reasonable in prices, and get a much bigger house and actually walk away with quite a bit of money in flip. But that's a rarity. All right. As it is right now, when you're starting out, you have to really look at, how you're going to come up with a house and how much are you going to put into it. So I look at never exceed more than half of your take-home pay. Preferably, you're looking at 1/3 of your take-home pay. Now, again, mortgage companies and realtors are going to push you to go higher, but you need to realize. Now, before you start looking at houses, make sure that you get pre-approval, and then get the letter for that. That way, when you're making offers, they know right away that you have the money. The downside is whatever that offer or what the lender wants. What you should do is look at what you're willing to spend, what you can afford, and get approval for that amount. If you let them just give you approval for, I don't know, 500,000, 600,000, anytime you go, if you're putting on a house at maybe 300,000, they see that you have approval for 500,000, they're not likely to deal with you very much, or come down very much. And you really want to bargain. as they go on. And use the online mortgage calculators carefully, but remember they're going to push you into a bigger. We're going to do an exercise next after this on actually pricing how much what you can afford. Okay, but basic approach for your first home. Again, my advice. You want to shoot for a 20% down payment. That way you can avoid the PMI, or you can consider a VA loan or an FHA loan. The VA loans are you really, they cover the down payment kind of part of things, so you can go in there with nothing on a VA. FHA, you're paying a little bit more, and both VA, they get you other ways. But the big thing is you want to strive, like, look for that 20% down, and write out your goal when you want your house, 20%, what you can afford. You can use our exercise 1 and 2 kind of thing to figure out how you put this together and come up with it. Now, when you evaluate homes, you all need to look at a price per square foot basis. And up literally until, I would say, 2015, 2016, $100 per square foot was, in most of the country, was a solid price for a home. So, a 2,000 square foot home, you're looking at $200,000. But that's gone now. It really, unless you're going to more depressed areas or homes that are distressed, you're not going to find that. And I'm seeing 300, 400 in some cases, some markets. So it really is difficult to deal with, for on a first time. I'd like to use Zillow, but there's a lot of other online real estate services to find and compare the properties. And when I price a home, I look at 3 things. First, I look at the Zillow estimate. Next, I look at the tax value, and you can get that. It's all on the web anymore. All you have to do is go to the county auditor or the county recorder, and you'll find the home, and you get a lot of history there. You can find out when it was sold, how much it was sold each time, what's appraised, what are they being taxed, and then the other thing, and the realtor will give you this, will be the comparable home sales. This is also available on some of the sites. I use all 3, and I'll talk more about that. But one thing you need to remember is dealing with the realtor. The realtor is going to get 3%. Okay, that's typical. Some realtors will go for a lot less, but normal they go for the 3%, and they are not working for you. They are working for the buyer, or most often just flat out working for themselves. If they can get a sale quick and then get a sale at a high price, that's more money, less time in their pocket. And I sell my own houses. I buy a lot of houses, and I've watched realtors. I was offering a 1% sale on mine, and there were 3 other units in the complex that were offering 3%. The realtor came through to show properties, showed the other 3, walked right by mine. Didn't even let them know it was for sale. And ethical, not really, but bottom line, I was selling it cheaper, because I wasn't paying as much on to the realtor, but it went right by. I raised mine up to 3%. I had the realtors coming in and out quickly, and my place sold really quick. But I raised the price on it too. Some alternatives that you can do. Work directly with builders. And and this doesn't work real well with like big companies, but I do it. I came by in the place we have that we're living in right here. I went directly to the builder. He was a small business, and I showed up with no realtor. I just, hey, I'm looking for a place. In my case, was a cash deal. What can we work a deal out? And yeah, I ended up with about 40,000 off on the property. Did the closing cheap, no realtor fees. It was pretty sweet. Another one, you can look at foreclosures, and I have purchased foreclosures. I've worked short sales. All of these are things I consider it kind of a game, and um, online auctions. And I've also bought several properties using online auctions, and I've used Hubzu and Auction.com both to buy properties, and that actually worked out extremely well. And again, in one case, I think I got one for about $20 per square foot, and that was just a cash cow. So it was a real good opportunity. But if you're have the opportunity of time, and this may be something you do later in your life, look at the options and the flips and things like that. But no matter what, and really first time, you're got to find a place to live. So it's hard to use the foreclosure short sales to do that. But if you've got a little bit of time, a little window, there's nothing wrong with looking around at it. No matter what, don't be pressed into a fast offer. Hot markets, you may need to move quick, but I prefer to look for homes that have been on the market for more than 30 days. Okay. Um, when it's hot, homes will go out on the market and people are throwing 4 or 5 bids immediately, and they're gone. That's difficult market to deal with, and often you'll end up paying more than what the home's worth. And in most cases, or many cases, you're going to end up with possibly losing some money. And in 2007, 2008, a lot of people lost a ton. Home price. Okay, so what do I offer? Okay, and I look at 3 price targets. And again, the 3 that I said. I'm gonna look at my Zillow. I'm gonna look at what the government says it's worth, and I'm gonna look at the comparable home sales. And then I'm gonna take the lowest of those, which is usually gonna be what they're paying taxes on, and then I'm gonna estimate what I'm gonna put in for repair costs. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back to the tax records, and I'm gonna look at what the current owner paid for the property. Generally, an owner wouldn't take a loss on a property, and I wouldn't want them to. So if I've got a property and I think it's going to be worth 250,000, and and he's asking 290, okay, and I think I need 10,000 repairs, so I'm probably going to offer 240, maybe even 220, okay, for it. Way less than what he wants. But now if I look and hey, he bought it at 240. Well, he's got a mortgage probably at that. So he's not going to pay or be able to pay money to get out of the house, or not want to. So in that case, I probably am going to offer, if I really wanted it, maybe I would go up to 245, something like that. Still way below where he's at, maybe way below the comparables. But it's been in the market 30 days, especially if it's sitting empty. He's already moved, you know, um, and I can make it a quick close. You may get it, right? Lots of times I piss people off. Yeah. One of the things I was told by a very wealthy and smart person when you're dealing with property, if you make an offer and you're not embarrassed by the offer you're making, you're offering too much. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so now you're gonna have to find a lender. Okay, so start with Bankrate. Bankrate, and we'll come back to them several times. And, you can find they'll all be out there. Evaluate them carefully. Don't go to the local bank down the street. Okay, go to the bank rate, make an educated decision. Lots of people just want to be easy. There's a bank at the corner. I'll just go in there, and they're going to end up paying a higher rate. Probably they're going to pay extra points. Probably, um, and often that bank isn't even going to do it. They're going to sell it to somebody else, and then play as the middleman and make profit on just on you going there. So sort it out. Okay. Um, then some home buying services or new home builders can get good deals into a home. Um, don't overlook that. Yeah, I will say, if you're looking at a new home, you're going to pay too much. Okay, it's going to be overpriced. Now you may get there's a lot of benefits on the new home, and you may get a great interest rate potentially. Yeah, so it's worth taking a look at. Look at all the options. Take your time, especially if it's like, okay, I'm going to build up my 20% down. I know that I'm looking for a home at 225 to 245,000, and I'm going to need 2 years to do it. Well, that's good. So in 2 years, you can start working through all this. Make it a goal. Okay, what you're doing, timely, lay it out, and do your research. Okay, and and then you'll be successful. And the big thing is, you may save literally tens of thousands of dollars if you strategize it right, and that money goes into your retirement and helps you in the future. So, long presentation. It's a complicated subject, but I hope it gave you some ideas. And of course, you can always shoot me an email or something like that and ask a question.